The Michigan Man Podcast, episode 216. Storm clouds gathered over Ann Arbor on Saturday, and the winds of discontent continue to blow across Wolverine Nation as we prepare for the Big Ten opener in the battle for the Little Brown Jug.
Oh man, Euchre's been broadcasting for 27 years. I have never seen anything like this. They need 2 inches. Dennis Franklin, the quarterback, taking a long count from center. He hands off to Shuttlesworth 5, and it's down to the end zone. Touchdown! Touchdown, Dennis Franklin! Oh my God, Dennis Franklin fooled everybody. He fooled me. He fooled the entire Ohio State team. Kneeling is Larry Gustafson. Attempting will be Super Toe. Super Toe will kick the 30-yard field goal. It's kicked to send over end. It's a tied-up ball game. 10-10. Okay. Under center is Wangler at the 45. He goes back. He's looking for a receiver. He throws downfield to Carter. Carter hands up. Carter is down. Oh my God! Carter scores! Look at those Wolverines! 95 Wolverines going to the end zone. Carter got the pass in the air. It's done. Buford is going to have his fun. I have never seen anything like this in all my 40 years of covering Michigan football.
This is the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue, and welcome to this week's show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. This isn't the start we envisioned for Team 135, but as we prepare for a visit from Coach Jerry Kill and his Golden Gophers, it is what it is. Turnovers, poor decisions on the field and from the sidelines, fundamental breakdowns, 10-minute punt coverage resulting in a score. You know what I mean. You saw the game on Saturday. If you thought it was a storm on Saturday, stick around. Storm clouds are still gathering in Ann Arbor in all directions. It's going to be a very interesting week in so many ways. This week we kick off the Big Ten season with a visit from the 3-1 Golden Gophers in the battle for the Little Brown Jug. On our visitor segment, we'll get the scoop on the visitors from their longtime radio play-by-play voice, Michael Grimm. After that, Chris Balas, senior editor at thewolverine.com, will join us to recap Utah and talk about what Michigan needs to do to survive this week and come away with a victory on Saturday in the Big House. Before that, my view from Section 17. It's not that we lost on Saturday, it was once again how we lost. While the defense played its butts off most of the game, the offense sputtered, couldn't find the red zone, and shot itself in the foot with turnovers once again. Even in the victories against App State and Miami, we were careless with the football and made too many fundamental mistakes. Both of those teams were just so bad that they couldn't take advantage of our mistakes. Notre Dame and Utah were more than able to make us pay for our miscues. 4 games into the season, we are at the top of the heap in 2 categories: tackles for loss and turnover ratio. How do we fix it? I have no idea. And if you listen to the fans I sit near in Section 17, they are beginning to think we are just not a good football team right now, and it's not going to change anytime soon. I agree with the first part of that sentiment. We aren't a good football team right now. But with 8 games left on the schedule, I'm not ready to cash these kids out. I still think we have too much talent on this roster, and at some point, we are going to turn the corner. I hope so anyway. For Coach Hoke and his staff, the pressure is mounting and the clock is ticking. This is a young team with very few seniors to lead the way. It's also a reality that this team does not have a core group of veterans that have experienced winning for an extended period of time. So when storms like last Saturday's arrive, there is just no one to turn to for leadership on the field when the going gets tough. I know this coaching staff is squarely on the hot seat now, and the patience of this very loyal fan base has hit the boiling point. I certainly don't have the answers for what needs to be done to right the ship. But something needs to change fast, or Saturday's storm won't be the last we'll see in Ann Arbor this fall. On Saturday, Minnesota and Michigan will do battle for the most coveted piece of crockery in college football, the little brown jug, as Bob Ufer used to say. The Gophers are off to a 3-1 start, have shown improvement each of the last 3 years under the direction of Coach Kill, and some will say they are a one-dimensional team that can just run the football but can't pass to save their lives. We'll see on Saturday. Michael Grimm is the longtime radio voice of Gophers football, and he joins me next on our visitor segment here on the Michigan Man podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. On our visitor segment this week, my guest is Minnesota radio play-by-play voice Michael Grimm, back for another year. Great to have you with us again, Michael.
Always great to be on in the great state of Michigan, and looking forward to our visit up there this weekend.
Well, the Gophers moved their record to 3-1 on Saturday with a convincing 24-7 win over San Jose State. And it was another big day on the ground led by David Cobb's 200-plus yards, wasn't it, Michael?
It was, and, they only completed one pass to the Gophers, and so there is a lot of hand-wringing certainly here in Minnesota, but just how effective can this pass game be, and how much passing game will they need throughout the Big Ten season? They were good last year. They were 4-4 in the Big Ten, which by Minnesota standards was one of their better seasons in recent memory from a record standpoint, and they didn't have to pass that much last year. So I think that's the style of play they want. They're getting more comfortable with their offensive linemen being at the point where they believe they can push a few people around, and they certainly pushed San Jose State around. Cobb had 208 yards, as you mentioned. The senior running back was a top 15 rushing day in school history. And then the quarterback making his first start was Chris Strebler. He had the third best rushing day ever in the history of the program for a quarterback. He had 161 yards rushing on the ground. So a big day. They didn't need to pass, and now we'll find out as the Big Ten season starts how much they will need to pass if they want to win football games.
Well, Michael, as you mentioned, Chris Strebler making his first start, struggled in the passing game and had that big running day. Now, Mitch Leidner was out of action, I believe, with a knee sprain and turf toe. Is he possibly going to play this week?
I think it's a possibility. I think if he does, I still think you'll see Chris Strebler for two reasons. One, I think they'll want to take some of the workload off of Leidner if he's still a little bit, on the tender side. And two, Strebler does bring a little bit different aspect. He's a little faster than Leidner, and he certainly can run the spread option situation maybe a little better than Leidner. Leidner has done that well over the years. It's an interesting mirror from last year. If you recall, last year the Gophers played San Jose State right before playing at Michigan, and I think it was right before Michigan, or maybe it was 2 weeks before Michigan. Now that I think about it, and Leidner made his first start as a collegiate player as a redshirt freshman against San Jose State and ran for 151 yards. And last week, Strebler made his first start as a college player, ran for 161 yards, also against San Jose State, also as a redshirt freshman. And then 2 weeks later, Leidner made his first road start at Michigan. In this case, it could be Strebler making his first road start at Michigan. And so here's what I think. I think you'll see, if Leidner doesn't play, then obviously it's Strebler's game. I think if Leidner does play, then I still think you'll see a little bit of Strebler just as a change-up. And just to take some of the wear and tear off of Leidner, knowing the bye week is coming up, and I think that will play a factor. The bye week comes after Michigan, and then the Gophers hit a 4-game stretch of what I would call their most winnable games in the next 4. And so I'm sure they'll want Leidner fully healthy for that stretch. So it could be that they'll hold him out, knowing the bye week's coming, and get him fully healthy. But the easy answer is nobody knows yet at this point. I don't even think the coaches know. They'll get their medical reports as the week goes on.
Well, Michael, we know this Minnesota team can run the football, but how big of a concern are the struggles in the passing game so far this year?
Well, I think it's a concern. There's no doubt. For much of last year, they didn't throw the ball very well either, but a lot of it was kind of handed off as if it were a receiver issue, that the receivers couldn't gain separation and the quarterbacks were doing all they could. I think the weaponry is better at a receiver standpoint this year. The Gophers have guys that have been around now an extra year. They've learned. They run better routes. They've got a really good pass-catching tight end who didn't play last week against San Jose State. He's got a bad calf, a kid named Max Williams. I think he'll play this week against Michigan, and that makes the passing game better just instantly. But I think there's a concern. I don't think you can, pawn it off on the fact now that, well, the receivers aren't any good. I think it becomes a scheme issue and a quarterback issue, and they have to figure out ways to get the ball on time and on target to receivers in a much more efficient manner.
Last week, Michael, I was watching BTN and I saw a report that the Gophers had 5 players that have gone down with season-ending ACL injuries, I think, since camp started, which is a lot. So injuries have really been a bugaboo for this team so far early in the campaign, haven't they?
No doubt. Jerry Kill, the head coach, has been a head coach for 21 years. He was an assistant 10 years before that. So this is his 31st year of coaching, and he said he's never been involved with a team that has had this many injuries this fast, through 4 weeks, where he's had, as you mentioned, five season-ending injuries. And then additionally, guys are banged up, although they're not out for the season. That includes Leitner. Zach Epping, the left guard, has played through a high ankle sprain. Alex Keith, the starting defensive end, has not played since the season opener. They think he'll be back, maybe not this week, but at some point. KJ May played with his hand heavily bandaged last week. He's a wide receiver. Max Williams, as we mentioned, was out. They had last Thursday, the team doctor performed 3 surgeries on one day, and it was all obviously season-ending kind of stuff, including a guy who was a redshirt. It was a true freshman who was going to redshirt anyway, so it's not necessarily a loss on the field. He was injured on the practice field, but you get the idea. It's been an incredibly unlucky start here for the Golden Gophers, and they don't have a lot of depth anyway. Their senior class, this is Kill's 4th year, and so the senior class that he came in his first year, as you see a lot of times with coaching changes, guys leave, guys quit, and that recruiting class was not one that stayed around anyway. So that they just don't have much of a senior class, so there isn't much experience depth-wise, and so with each one of these injuries, they're dipping deeper into their depth chart with guys that have not played before, and so the more that happens, the scarier it gets from a Minnesota perspective.
Michael, last year's Gophers defense was pretty darn good when you look at the overall. They ranked 8th in the Big Ten, number 54 nationally in all 4 major defensive categories. How has that defense looked to you so far this year?
Well, if you look at the numbers, the sheer numbers, it's not great. They were pitching a shutout in the season opener against Eastern Illinois, and then brought in the reserves, and they gave up 20 points in the last 4 minutes. So that looks a little deceiving. They were pretty good against Middle Tennessee State. They got put in some really bad spots down at TCU in that blowout loss. And then last week they were really good against San Jose State. So statistically it doesn't look great, but I don't think there's any doubt that's the strength of the team. The secondary in particular is the strength of the team. They're forcing turnovers. They're forcing bad throws. They're getting interceptions now at a nice rate. And to be quite honest with you, if Minnesota's going to make some noise, it's because the defense will keep them in games. It was right after the Michigan game last year that they made some changes in the secondary. And from that point on, this secondary has been lights out. They lost a kid who's now starting for the Chicago Bears, a kid named Brock Vereen, who was very good as a safety and then moved to cornerback after the Michigan game last year. And that helped free some things up, put some guys in spots they were better to succeed in. They've added a redshirt freshman named Jalen Myrick, who is as fast as anybody on the team, and he's got a pick 6 this year. So I think the secondary is really good, and it's been good, like I said, since the Michigan game, after the Michigan game. They weren't very good in that Michigan game. They weren't very good prior to that. But since that point, if you look, I think we figured it up the other day, they're the third best pass defense from that Michigan game last year until right now, if you factor all those games into the third best pass defense in terms of fewest yards allowed and everything else. So that's the strength of the team. If teams can pass on this Gopher team, then they're going to be in trouble. The Gophers will, because that, I think, is how they're going to be able to stay in games if the offense struggles.
Our guest in our visitor segment today is the Minnesota Golden Gopher radio play-by-play voice, Michael Grimm, getting ready for a visit to the Big House this weekend. Well, this Saturday, Michael, it will be strength, that powerful running game that Minnesota features against Michigan's strength, the run defense, which has been very good this year. We can't say that about many aspects of the Michigan game. Minnesota's running game and Michigan's run defense, great matchup. The Gophers, though, as we mentioned at the top of the interview, really are going to need to have some success throwing the ball to sustain drives, aren't they?
No doubt. That was their issue at TCU, that and turnovers. But, TCU's run defense was very good, and they were pretty much able to contain the Gophers' run offense. And then when they did pass, they weren't very accurate, the Gophers, and then they threw the ball to TCU a couple of times, which doesn't help. So I'd say this. I'd say for Minnesota, it's maybe their best chance to maybe come in and steal a game at Michigan than they've had in a long time, certainly since they won there in 2005, and then I think it's just one win in the last 22 visits to the Big House. So, they haven't had a lot of great chances. They've been double-digit underdogs in a lot of those, but I do think this is a good chance. If Minnesota can run the ball, as you said, against this Michigan team that strength is the run defense, and then I really like Minnesota's chances. If the Michigan run defense is stout and forces the Gophers, into a passing game and they become one-dimensional, then I think Michigan has, a real good chance to hold serve at home and see where they go. Minnesota's strength is kind of going against what, at least early, looks to be Michigan's weakness. Minnesota's strength is the defensive secondary, and the weakness, maybe Michigan's had some trouble putting the ball in the air. And so hopefully the Gophers, from a Minnesota standpoint, can create some things that way. But you're right, it'll be an interesting matchup on both sides. And I think Michigan will certainly concentrate on trying to stop that Gopher running attack.
Well, Michael, Coach Kill, now in his fourth year as head coach up there, each season his teams have gotten better, which is something Gopher fans have to appreciate. And despite the injuries, do you think this might be his best team yet?
I would say for sure it would have been had they stayed healthy. Still certainly has a chance. Now, they won 8 games last year on a schedule that I don't think is as tough as what they have this year. So I think there's a possibility that this Gopher team could win 7 this year. Wouldn't match last year's win total, but could be a better team. I mean, you add in a TCU road game in the non-conference, and then you lose, and this is no knock on anybody, but you don't play Indiana, which you did last year. Now, you do pick up Illinois, which you didn't play last year if you're the Gophers, and that might be a wash. They do have some favorable home games, but the last 4 games are really tough. The last 4 games, they are 2 road games to close the year out at Nebraska and at Wisconsin, so that won't be easy. And then home against Ohio State and home against Iowa. So it goes Iowa, Ohio State, Nebraska, then Wisconsin. So it's a tough closing stretch. So if Minnesota wants to match or surpass its win total from last year, then I think the 4 games after the Michigan game are really ones they got to get. That's Northwestern. That includes Michigan. I mean, that's one that you're not favored to win if you're Minnesota, but you might have an opportunity. And then you got Northwestern, Illinois, and Purdue in the next 3, and then Iowa at home. So out of that 5-some, including the Michigan game, to really do what you want to do, you got to, I think, go out and get 4 of them to get to 7, and then hope you can somehow snake out a win late.
Well, as we mentioned, it's great to see Coach Kill back on the sidelines, Michael, this year after all of his issues last year. Is he having any seizures so far during the season, or has everything been good?
Everything has been good. He looks good. He's watching a little bit more of his health from a diet standpoint. He walks a lot with his wife, trying to stay fit and active. But as the season wears on, it's a grind. You're working long hours. No one knows. I mean, they've done, billions of dollars worth of research, and no one knows for sure what causes seizures. I do think, and we talk about this a lot, I do think there's a misconception like this is a life-threatening illness for Coach Kill, like he could keel over at any time, and that's not the case. Now, seizures can be serious, and you can get hurt having a seizure by, if you fall down and hit your head, and on a rare occasion, seizures can cause death. But from a standpoint of general overall health, he has a seizure disorder. He's epileptic, so he'll have seizures at some time. He hopes, obviously, it's not as public as on occasion it has been in his time at Minnesota. But at the end of the day, by and large, they feel fine that, it's not as if he's on his deathbed. It's just a disorder that he has, and he's trying to deal with the best he can. And he is medicated. He takes medication. He's allowed to drive now for the first time in a long time because he's been seizure-free for a while. And so I think things are certainly looking up from that regard. But as an epileptic person, you never know when the next one could hit. And so he's always on guard, that's for sure.
I'm just glad, and I think all Big Ten fans, college football fans, are glad to see him back on the sidelines into the game. That's where he should be.
No doubt about it.
This Saturday, of course, the Big Ten opener for both teams. Everyone knows Michigan's reeling. Everyone knows the Gophers are off to a solid 3-1 start. So what, again, do you see as the one or two keys to victory if Minnesota is going to come into the Big House and walk out with a W?
I think the keys stay the same for Minnesota regardless of opponent, and that is they got to run the football. They have to have some effective play action off of that, eat up some of the field in chunks based on play action and play well defensively. I mean, none of this is earth-shattering, I realize, but I do think to win on the road at a place like the Big House at Michigan Stadium, they're going to have to come up and steal some points, whether that's an interception that's returned for a touchdown or puts the offense in good shape or, a punt return. Block a punt, something along those lines. Maybe they run a fake punt and extend a drive. I don't know. I think they'll have to do, steal some points somewhere along the line. And this is going to sound strange because my guess is Baumgardner. I mean, who knows if he'll even start? You guys may have a better answer to that than me. And I know he's been under fire there now for a season plus, but in fact, I'd say his last really good game was probably when the Gophers were there last time. He had a nice game. His breakout game came against the Gophers at TCF Bank Stadium in Minneapolis the year before. So from a Minnesota standpoint, looking through our myopic view here, we're saying one of the keys is containing Baumgardner because he's eaten the Gophers up for two games back-to-back. And so I think they'll have to do that. I mean, sometimes guys just play against teams. It's their team they excel against, and so the Gophers, certainly assuming that Gardner plays, have to have a game plan to control him and make sure he remains ineffective.
Well, I think that's going to be the question here all week. Who is going to line up under center for Michigan? My hunch is you'll see Baumgardner too, but we really don't know.
Yeah, and again, the Gophers, I know people around the country are saying that the kid's struggling, but the Gophers' history is that he's been really good against them. So they're certainly preparing as if Gardner will play, and preparing as if they got to figure out a way to control what he has been able to do against them the two times he's played against them.
Well, it's the Big Ten opener, a lot at stake for both teams, a lot of drama, of course, on our side up here in Ann Arbor. So we shall see Saturday as Minnesota visits the Big House for the Big Ten opener. My guest here on our visitors segment has been Minnesota radio play-by-play voice Michael Grimm. As always, Mike, it's great to talk to you. Thanks for your time, and enjoy the weekend in Ann Arbor.
Will do. We enjoy it always when we come up there, and we'll look forward to it, and as always, enjoy to be on your show. Thank you.
Coming up next on our Michigan Game Day segment, we'll hear from the senior editor at thewolverine.com, Chris Balas, here on the Michigan Man podcast on GBMW Go Blue, Michigan Wolverine. With us on our Michigan Game Day segment this week is the senior editor at thewolverine.com, Chris Balas. Great to have you on the show with us, Chris.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Well, of course, we're going to look back at that rain-soaked affair against the Utah Utes on Saturday and then take some time to look ahead at the Big Ten opener. Chris, it was just a long, grueling day for everyone on Saturday. The defense, I thought, played their part, played well for the most part. There were some issues, and we'll touch on those a bit later. The offense, though, is a completely different matter. It's not just one thing we can focus on and say, fix that, and we'll be okay. It's just a flat-out mess right now, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And Brady Hoke talks about the little things, and it's a little thing here and a little thing there. But when you have a bunch of little things, then it becomes a big thing. It's 10 men on a punt return that's returned for touchdown, 10 men on the field. It's an offensive line that still struggles to pick up blitzes and really handle some basic things. And talking to some former Michigan linemen, they're like, this just doesn't work. And if you watch them, these are such easy things to fix, but they never get fixed. And you have to wonder why. Now, it's been a few years of that where guys just aren't playing with confidence. And you see a group that, in my opinion, has almost become accustomed to losing. And when things start to go badly, former teams in the past used to really rally around that and really kind of bring it together when things were down. Okay, the resolve improves and they come back and they're like, we're not gonna let this happen. This group doesn't have it in them right now. You've got a lot of youth up front. You've got a quarterback that's lost his confidence, in my opinion, in Devin Gardner. You don't really have a ton of playmakers. If you look out there on the field, you've got a Devin Funchess who's making big plays for you, but everything seems labored on offense. I like you, was impressed with the defense, especially early. You're going to have a big play every now and then. Jared Wilson not being back there as safety certainly didn't help him out at all, but in my opinion, the defense looked fine. The defense has been playing pretty well, especially against the run, but unless they fix that offense, they're going to be doomed heading into the Big Ten.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the confidence factor, I was listening to Wolverine.com podcast yesterday with John talking to Marcus Ray, and Marcus Ray brought up, I think, a very valid point. He said there's really no one on this team out there in the field right now, or even in the locker room, that knows how to win, that has experienced winning or success for an extended period of time. And, man, that makes it really tough when you get into a situation like the team was in on Saturday to pull it together.
Yeah, there's no swagger. There is no Marcus Ray out there. If you go back and watch some of the ESPN Classic stuff, which I've been doing a lot of lately, believe me, because better days. It's a little more fun to watch those than some of the recent games. But there's nobody out there that really plays with that swagger like a Marcus Ray, like a Charles Woodson. They are going out there not expecting good things to happen, it appears to me. And it's not that there's not some talent out there. I think that there is. But guys, you see shoulders slumping. I really thought, especially against Notre Dame, when they missed the second field goal, you could kind of sense the wind come out of their sails a little bit, and they're starting to look around, and you see poor body language. And speaking again to some of these former players, you can see it. It really deflates them. So what they've got to do, in my opinion, is they've got to get their confidence back. It starts really by starting fast. They're going to have to start getting out to some leads somehow on these teams. How they're going to do it, I don't know with this offense, because, again, you've got a quarterback that seems to lock in on his first target. You've got receivers that don't get open very often. You've got an offensive line that can be a sieve at times, and you've got running backs that, in my opinion, are still a little bit pedestrian. I like Derek Green. I like Devion Smith, but you don't look at these guys and say, okay, these are the guys like Tyrone Wheatley that are going to be able to carry you. So they've got a lot of work to do. If they're going to do it, it's going to have to be as a team. They're going to have to clean up all the little things and get rid of the mistakes. You can't be last in the country or at the bottom in turnovers and expect things to turn around. That's unacceptable, and they're never going to win that way.
Chris, one of the things we're going to be hearing a lot, we're already hearing it, but as the week goes on, Shane or Devin? That question is going to be everywhere. Would you be surprised if Shane gets the starting nod on Saturday against Minnesota?
No, not at all. And I do still think they'll probably stick with Devin Gardner if he has a good week of practice and give him first shot. But I think the leash is going to be a lot shorter now, and I think it should be at this point. And I'm not blaming him specifically for their woes. You look at, again, that offensive line, and Brady talked about it in the post game on Saturday about how there was a pocket at times where they could step up and they could do okay. But I watched the film again, and it just wasn't good enough. And if you look at the lines of the past, it's like Doug Skeen said, former Michigan All-Big Ten lineman. He said, if anybody touched our quarterback or got close to him, we took it personally. Well, Devin Gardner's been running for his life, and you can't blame him for being shell-shocked. I think he got hit 28 times against Michigan State last year, and you can kind of sense that he's not the same quarterback that we saw, for example, last year against Notre Dame at the beginning of the year, where he's out there slinging it and looking like a confident guy that was going to lead him to victory. Here's a guy that's been hit a lot and seems unsure of himself. He's had to learn 3 different offenses in 5 years, so you kind of expect that. So at the same time, you look at Shane Morris and the way he throws the ball, that cannon of an arm he's got. Part of it, he was 4 of 13 on Saturday. Part of that, he's playing in a driving rainstorm. I think the interception got away from him because of the wet ball. That's going to happen, but it wouldn't surprise me at all to see him get a shot. I'm going to say right now, I'll go out on a limb and I'll say that Devin Gardner starts that game, but I think we're going to see Shane Morris play as well.
I think you're right. And, I was sitting with a very successful high school coach from Ohio on Saturday, and he mentioned that Devin's feet aren't set. He's holding the ball too long, but he thought the biggest problem was the delivery.
Yeah.
Side-armed, sort of a double hitch in his normal delivery, and he was shot-putting. It looked like some of the short passes. And, 4 games into the season with all the pressure he's under, that has to be tough to fix at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, it looks like he's aiming it, doesn't it? It looks like he's afraid to make a mistake, and he's not gunning it in there. It does. It looks exactly like he's shot putting it, and not like the guy that we saw again. Some of the balls he threw, and I was watching the Notre Dame game from last year, some of those balls he threw were outstanding, and you're thinking, this kid's a pro. And now it just looks like he's just pushing it out there. He's aiming it, hoping not to make a mistake. He's thinking so much about the turnovers, and he's probably heard it so much, and they've probably harped on it so much, and you have to. But, that second interception he threw on Saturday, you could just kind of tell he looked defeated after that. He ran to the sideline. He threw his helmet down. It looked almost to Doug Nussmeier like he said, I'm done. And he didn't want any more of that. That's not what you need from your leader. And he is the leader of the offense as long as he's the quarterback. He might not be the captain yet. It might not be at the end of the year at this point. You never know when they name captains. But he's got to be the guy that you look to in a huddle and say, okay, everything's going to be fine, and we're going to move down the field here. But it's just not happening. And when you don't get into the red zone against your two best opponents, and Utah's not the standard for defense, believe me. I mean, they're going to be okay, but that is not the standard. That's certainly not the best defense they're going to face all year. You've got a big problem. So maybe, I'm thinking, like I said, first quarter, maybe you see Baumgardner in there. If things go poorly, I think you're going to see Shane Morris pretty early.
Another thing about Saturday, Chris, I know looking through the raindrops, I couldn't see a lot in the second half, but where was Jake Butt on Saturday? I didn't hear anything prior to the game or after the game as to why he didn't see any action.
Yeah, I think he's still nursing that knee injury, and they want to be careful with him. I don't think he's re-injured, but I do think that, those injuries are tough to come back from, as you know, and you don't want to, in those conditions, too, put him out there where if he cuts, something's going to snap or something, and he's going to get re-injured again. But he needs to be more focal point of this offense. There's no question about it. They need somebody to step up in a mismatch, because right now those receivers, if you watch them on film, and I was watching it the other night, they're just not getting separation and running great routes. These are bigger receivers that they've recruited, but you've got to be able to get separation. Utah, I think, had 10 pass breakups in that game, and that's pretty indicative that okay, you're not getting the separation, and even some of Devin Funchess' catches, one on the sideline that looked Megatron-esque. I think you probably remember which one I'm talking about, the 19-yarder on the sideline, where you've got to make great plays to move the chains on third down. Everything looks labored. But they're going to need to exploit that and really get the tight ends involved, in my opinion. I think he's really the only pass catcher for all the tight ends that they've recruited right now. He's really the only one that seems to be able to stretch the field. So got to get him involved. I think you'll see more of that as he continues to get healthy. Brady Hoke will not talk about injuries, so we can't ask him about that at the press conference today, but we will ask if they plan to get him more involved in the offense, because that's a weapon. We've seen what he can do. We saw it last week. He has outstanding hands, and I think that's going to be one of the plans going forward.
Chris, there are so many issues on the offensive side of the ball that need fixing, but if you could at least cut down on the turnovers, that again this week really has to be the major focus, doesn't it?
It really does, and what do you do about it? That's what you asked Brady Hoke. We asked him about it last year when they were turning the ball over like crazy. And he said there are things we do, and you can have you can do gimmicky things like have a kid take football to class. But you know what Bo Schembechler used to do? He used to, Jamie Morris. I remember he fumbled in the 1987 Ohio State game, and I don't think he saw the field again because it was that much of a big deal to Bo, where that wasn't going to be acceptable. And you've got to get it ingrained in these kids' heads that hey, at some point, if you're going to continue to turn the ball over and make these mistakes, you're just not going to see the field. They've got the depth now where they're going to be able to plug some other people in there, in my opinion. Maybe not great depth like you had in the past when you had 125 scholarship guys on the team, but at the same time, it just can't happen. I mean, you cannot be nearly last in the country in tackles for loss like they were last year at Michigan. You cannot be last in the country in turnover margin. I mean, it really sounds the way they want to play is almost like trestle ball, where, okay, we're going to rely on our defense and our special teams, but frankly, the special teams haven't done their part. If you look at Will Hagerup, so your offense, all you're asking of your offense basically is to move the ball and not turn it over. They haven't been able to do that, and if they continue to not be able to do that, they're not going to win many games in the Big Ten either.
Well, you mentioned the special teams, along with the turnovers. The special team coverage is, on both punts and kicks, has been abysmal. Poor tackling, 10 men on the field for the punt on Saturday that resulted in the touchdown. And regardless of how good your defense is playing, and they were on Saturday, I thought, you can't let teams continue to make your defense play on a short field. I mean, Utah was setting up shop at the 30 and 40-yard line after punts.
Yeah, and not to pick on Will Hagerup, but here's a kid who was the number one punter in the country coming out of high school, and this kid, on that one point, he's got the wind at his back. All he's got to do is hang that thing up and kick it high. The wind's going to take it 45 yards, and you've got a fair catch. He kicks a line drive. J.U. Chesson, who I think has been really good as a gunner, didn't do his job as well as he could, obviously, on that one, and you've got 10 men on the field. It comes back to the house. I blame that as much on the punter as anything. And, yeah, it was a 46-yard kick. He didn't get the hang time he needed to. We haven't seen a whole lot of fair catches, and the fact is that it might be time to give a Kenny Allen a look. I saw Kenny Allen punt in high school. He's a preferred walk-on out of Fenton, I believe it is. And he can kick the ball, and he looked like he was doing it in practice as well. So maybe a Matt Weil, too. Maybe you give him that duty as well. But they've got to get more from that because they've got to be able to help that offense. It seems to me that the problems they have aren't going to be fixed overnight, a good old Rich Rodism, right? The problems we have didn't start overnight, aren't going to be fixed overnight type of thing. But you need to have that as a weapon. You need to be able to make teams drive the field, give your defense a chance. They still aren't forcing enough turnovers either, but you're going to have a lot better chance to get a turnover and make teams earn it on their way down the field instead of giving the ball at the 40-yard line.
Well, if we look for a positive, extremely difficult coming out of Saturday, the defense, and we touched on this at the top of the interview, the defense for the most part certainly did enough to win a ball game. They gave up one big drive and had a few breakdowns. But by and large, I thought, again, you're right, we're not creating the turnovers. We got a little bit more pressure. But overall, the defense was just not that bad.
No, they really weren't. And against the run, they've done a great job so far this year. They've made an offense that, Utah still looks like an old Mountain West team to me. They're not huge. They throw the ball a lot, and they used to make teams like that look pedestrian when they came into the Big House. I thought they did that again for the vast majority of Saturday's game. They had one mistake. I think it was Jabril Peppers on a flat pass that went for 67 yards and ended up in he got a little bit too aggressive there. It ended up in a 67-yard gain and a field goal. But and then the first drive of the second half, and I asked Brady about that in the press conference because the adjustments at halftime are really something that Michigan used to excel at, but that was really kind of a deflating drive when you let Utah go 5 plays and score on a 28-yard pass underneath coverage. But for the most part, they're doing their job. You couldn't have asked for a much better performance, in my opinion, other than that one drive and the one play. So it's really up to the offense to do their part. But I think against the run, they're doing well. I liked what I saw from Jordan Lewis at cornerback. I think you're going to see more from Jabril Peppers at the other cornerback. I like Blake Countess a lot better at nickel than I do at corner. Then when you've got Ray Taylor, I think that's but when he comes back, I think that's one of your better positions, more deep positions at cornerback. So I think they'll be okay there. I like the run stoppers, and I like the way they're fitting. But at some point, too, you've got to wonder if these guys are going to get demoralized as well, being on the field as much as they have this year. So you're hoping that group continues to improve and continues to step up. It's up to the offense now to start to do their part. Again, otherwise you're looking at a 500 record in the conference.
Well, our guest today on our Michigan Game Day segment, looking back at the Utah game on Saturday, is the senior editor at thewolverine.com, Chris Balas. Chris, let's look ahead now to Saturday and the opener, the Big Ten opener for both teams, Minnesota and Michigan. It's going to be strength on strength, as it appears that way anyway, going into the game. Minnesota's rushing attack against Michigan's run defense. Minnesota looks like a one-dimensional team. I mean, they only completed one pass on Saturday. It's hard to see them getting many points against this defense, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that really plays to Michigan's strength, and I think you're going to see a very good opportunity here for Michigan to at least get some confidence in the Big Ten going into what's looking like a pretty rough stretch. If you'd asked me before the year, I'd have thought, okay, you're looking at 3-0 going into Michigan State, but now you're looking at Rutgers on the road and Penn State at home at night, and you're thinking those are going to be some tough games. But I think this is the right opponent at the right time and the way to really to start it. Minnesota is a one-dimensional team. If you can slow their running attack, and I think they should be able to. Again, I think Michigan's got to be like 8th in the country now, I think, against the run, if I'm not mistaken. They're playing it well. This is going to be a bigger challenge. This is a team that likes to. It's going to be a little bit bigger up front. This is a Big Ten team, not a great team, obviously, but I like Jerry Kill as a coach. I really do, and he and Brady Hoke share a lot of the same beliefs when it comes to football principles. So you could be one of those games that looks like an old Big Ten game, frankly. Maybe not a lot of scoring. You got to hope that the offense clicks in. They're going to have some opportunities, I think, against this Minnesota defense. So I think it's going to be one of those games. I think Michigan's an 8-point favorite, but you're looking maybe at a 2-score game here if Michigan doesn't turn the ball over, and there's certainly no guarantees there. So got to take care of business on defense and on special teams, take care of the ball, and I think they're able to escape with a win in this one.
Well, the one thing Minnesota fans, college football fans, have to be happy about is Jerry Kill's back on the sidelines, not having too many issues as far as we know. And you know what you can say about him, Chris, is that each year, through his first 3 years, his team's got better and better, and he thinks this is his best team, although they've had quite a few injuries so far in the season. But it's going to be a dogfight right now as we look at Saturday.
No, Mike, you're absolutely right. Every game, you can't take anything for granted. And Dr. Jerry Kill, I sat at his table on Big Ten Media Day, and I was talking to him about Brady Hoke. He's a big Brady Hoke admirer. Brady Hoke is a big Jerry Kill admirer. They're friends. Their wives go shopping together when they get together in Chicago. So, but he continues to get better. There's no question about it. This is a great guy. This is a guy that I root for just because of all the health issues that he's had and because he's one of the good guys in college football. So, and as a historian, you know, I don't remember Minnesota being good in the 1940s, but I've read about it, right? And you know how good they were back then, and you like to see schools like that with those old traditions get back. I like the new stadium. I've been up there, so I root for this guy. But I'm right there with you. You don't take anything for granted. You think Minnesota's not going to come in here and sense an opportunity? If things go poorly for Michigan early, hey, you never know. And they're probably thinking, hey, we're going to get a couple of turnovers here, and there are going to be some matchups that maybe we can exploit. We'll see. But again, they're going to have to find a way to run the ball. I don't see that happening. If they do, though, and they put some points on the board early, you can maybe see you might hear the life that just sucked right out of that stadium like you did on Saturday, and then you never know. This is a fragile team mentally, this Michigan team. So we'll see what happens. Again, I've got Michigan now. I don't think Michigan's going to blow them out. I think it might be a 10-point game or something like that. But imperative that they start the Big Ten season with a win. I think, again, this is the right opponent at the right time.
Well, Chris, on Saturday night, late Saturday night, all I heard on the way home listening to Detroit Sports Talk Radio was Brady has to go, or Brady and Brandon have to go. Do you think anything short of Michigan running the table this season is going to change that, or is it just way too early to get into that?
Yeah, I think it's way too early. I think, when you haven't started Big Ten play yet, the one thing I will say is that there's certainly a crack in the foundation at this point. You look out there, and what you're seeing is not Michigan football in year 4, and Brady Hoke could be the first one to admit that. And as I mentioned earlier, when you're last in the country in tackles for loss allowed, when you're last in the country in turnover margin, that speaks to fundamentals and technique, which is the one thing that they preach the most. So that just can't happen here. And it doesn't pass the look test, Mike. If you look out there, and you've seen plenty of Michigan football teams in the past, you aren't seeing them play Michigan football the way that it's supposed to be played.
Coming up next on Wolverine Quick Hits, we wrap it up for another week with an injury update and some quick facts about this week's opponent, the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Right here on the Michigan Man podcast on GBMW Go Blue, Michigan Wolverine. On Wolverine Quick Hits this week, Coach Hoke continues his policy of not going into detail regarding injuries, so here is what we know. Desmond Morgan is out with an undisclosed arm injury. Ramon Taylor and Dennis Norfleet are questionable. Jake Butt didn't play last week, but could see more action on Saturday. As far as we know, that's about all there is to report on the injury front. If there are any other injuries, we're not hearing about them. Here are some quick facts about this week's opponent, the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Michigan leads the series 73-24 with 3 ties. The first meeting between these two teams was on October 17, 1892, a 14-6 victory for Minnesota. Last October, Michigan beat the Gophers 42-13 up in Minneapolis. Coach Jerry Kill is in his 4th year as head man, and his record is 17-21. His overall record in 21 years as a head coach is 144-94. The Gophers run from a multiple spread offense with a standard 4-3 defense. They were 8-5 last year, 4-4 in the Big Ten. They return 11 starters, 4 on offense, 6 on defense, and 1 special teams player. They fell to Syracuse in the Texas Bowl last year 21-17. This Saturday, the Gophers will be 6-point underdogs when they travel to Ann Arbor for the battle for the Little Brown Jug. There is probably more drama than we'd like right now when it comes to Michigan football. So if you want to stay in the Wolverine loop, become a member here at GBM Wolverine. Visit www.gbmwolverine.com and sign up for our free membership. You'll get email reminders when a story is published, have access to our busy message board, and have a chance to join our weekly live chat. As we all know, there is plenty to talk about right now when the topic is Michigan football. So visit www.gbmwolverine.com and become a member today. If you listen to the show on your laptop or desktop, sign up for free delivery at the iTunes Store. Our show apps are available at iTunes, the podcast box at Amazon.com, and the Windows 8 App Store. You will also find us on 2 other great apps, Stitcher Radio On Demand and TuneIn Radio. If you get the show from iTunes, please take a minute to write a short review or rate us. Thanks in advance. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your recorded comments. Call 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. State your name, tell us where you're calling from, and give us your thoughts on the state of the program right now, or anything else on your maize and blue mind. You can also email us at the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. Your feedback is always welcome. Next week, we'll be back to recap the Minnesota game and look ahead to a trip to Piscataway, New Jersey, and a night game against the Scarlet Knights of Rutgers. My guests will be Rutgers radio play-by-play voice Chris Carlin and Wolverine beat writer Nick Baumgardner from MLive. So don't forget to come back next week. Who knows what's going to happen this Saturday in the Big House? It's early in the week, and as we know, this show airs on Wednesday. We'll have a decision on who the starting quarterback will be against the Gophers by then. There is more than enough drama surrounding the program right now. Whatever else happens, this Saturday at 3:30 p.m., Michigan and Minnesota will tee it up and do battle for the Little Brown Jug. Every game is a big game for Michigan right now, and for many reasons we need to get this thing back on track and start the Big Ten season off on the right foot. That will do it for this week's show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Until next time, have a great Wolverine week, everyone. Think victory, and let's take care of business this Saturday in the Big House. Take care, and as always, go blue. Thanks for listening to the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. You can find us on the web at www.gbmwolverine.com. That's www.gbmwolverine.com. For audio posts or other fan feedback, please call our listener line at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Email fan feedback to the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. That's the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan. The Michigan Man Podcast is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!